Hi there, Edward T. O'Donnell, your historian at large here with something amazing. A package has just arrived. And I know what you're thinking, it's Christmas time, big deal, but this is not a present. This is a book, a big fat book that I need to help me write a much smaller book on the history of the 1894 Pullman Strike. So big railroad strike, paralyzed the country, lots of people died, pretty dramatic event. Shall we take a look? All right, here it is. Just arrived from Chicago, appropriately, because that was the epicenter of the strike. Let's tear this thing open, see what it contains. Very well packaged, which is important because it's a historical document. We're getting warmer, down to layer 2. It's very exciting. Beautiful book. Report on the Chicago Strike, June, July, 1894. Look at that binding. So this book was published in 1895. This is a reprint from somewhere in the 70s. So the contents is well over 120 years old. The book itself is probably about 50 years old. Shall we take a look inside? So a quick overview of the Pullman Strike. It started in May of 1894. Workers at the Pullman Palace Car Company, basically a luxury railroad car company, went on strike. And to make a long story short, it quickly ballooned into a national railroad strike. Sympathy strikes by other unions and other workers paralyzed the country. And the big question was, would George Pullman, the owner of the Pullman Company, negotiate with his workers? He had slashed their wages by a third in the previous year. And he said, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to negotiate. I don't believe in unions. I don't believe they exist. I will never, ever talk to a union representative, etc. And he then telegraphed the federal government. President Cleveland debated it and then sent in the military, and they smashed the strike in July of 1894. Several dozen people were killed. It was a real heavy-handed use of federal authority and the federal courts, etc. You can read all about it in my book when it comes out next year. All right, so that's the context. So as a historian, you're trying to figure out what happened and who did what and why did they do it. And with events like this, social history essentially, we certainly know what George Pullman was thinking, what President Cleveland was thinking, etc., because they wrote all these things down, they're quoted in the newspapers, but we don't have a lot of evidence about what the workers were thinking and what the people of the town were thinking and what bystanders in Chicago were thinking and what soldiers were thinking when they were called into Chicago. And that's where this book comes in handy. This book largely contains over almost 700 pages of testimony from workers, testimony from strikers, etc. If you just look at this page here, and you can see in here, it's just lots and lots of testimony of workers, of people in Chicago. Look at that, just dozens and dozens of people who were there and who were explaining what they were thinking and why they went on strike and so forth. It's very rare to get these kinds of voices of people in history because they might write letters and might keep diaries, but that stuff generally never gets kept, never, just falls by the wayside, gets thrown away. So this is a gold mine for a historian like myself trying to figure out what happened during that, critical month, several months in June, July of 1894 during the Pullman Strike. So this is a magnificent piece of history. I'm going to be spending many, many hours going through it, very carefully reading everything, and it's going to really, really help me write that book. All right, let me know what you think. I love talking to you guys about history. Like this video if you like hearing about sort of the inside scoop on what historians do, and plus all the other things we do related to history, including cocktails and history on the road. And also hit follow, because we're going to be doing a lot of this in 2023. Thanks.